And without any further ado, the late Kelly, no. Kelly, I think I said everything I needed to say before, but I do want to add that it's a pleasure. And when we asked Kelly if he would do this, he of course said yes, which, you know, it's a Shabbat, it's a day of rest. He could be doing other things. He could be playing video games, but he chose to be with us to be able to share some thoughts and feelings. Remember that Kelly is a Manitoba-based educator, and he teaches on the Shoah, and he teaches on genocide, and he teaches on the notion of the Indigenous folks and their responsibilities and obligations and our responsibilities and obligations, and fostering ethical inquiry, fostering ethical inquiry-driven learning. And you maybe you're going to say a little bit more about what that's all about. I'd like to know what that technical term really is. And Kelly leads several schools and community initiatives, including documentary and oral history projects that amplify survivor voices and support public understanding of contemporary genocides as well. So without any further ado, Mensch, our friend, I think you're better in live than on this picture. I don't know. You're handsome in both, but this is good. This is good. Kelly, let's give him a big hand, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Enjoy. And if you want your own bio, here it is, okay?
Okay, perfect. Okay, I am going to do my best to stick to an hour or less. That's my biggest problem, so I have my timer here. So hopefully this will be good, because I have to rush home, get my kid, get my hair cut, so.
Turn the microphone.
Oh. There. Oop. There we go. All good? Okay. So I have a lecture that I'll go through, and any questions that arise after, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I can also give you my email as well, that you can contact me if I don't get to it, because I always want to make sure that if there are any questions that I answer them, and sometimes it can be tough during a time limit and family obligations and things like that. So thank you for giving me your time today. Hopefully I will teach you something new, may get you thinking about this in a different way, or how this even looks within a classroom today. So it's entitled Teaching the Holocaust During a Time of Rising Hate. And today's presentation, here are some things that I'm going to be addressing or explaining. Hopefully, a lot of you will probably have heard some of this, especially when we talk about the data. So why Holocaust education matters more than ever. This should probably be common sense to us here. Data collected from surveys on students' knowledge on the Holocaust. How do we engage students in today's world? I think that's a really important one that will probably stick out to you more. And strategies for making the Holocaust relevant today. And then some of the current undertakings that I'm a part of, and some of you in the audience are a part of as well. So this is kind of just the agenda. I'll be going through it in this linear fashion. And so Holocaust Educator Sites of Memory Tour that I'll be leading with my good friend Dr. Jody Perron, July 13th to 28th. We have over 30 educators from around Manitoba that have registered, applied, and been accepted. So this is the silver lining. This is the optimism I want to leave with you at the end of today. Not just kind of doom and gloom and statistics, but what am I doing? What are we doing? What are educators doing to try to combat this and confront it in a positive way? And I'm also doing another Poland trip for high school students next spring break. I don't even know how many trips I've done now. It's just the next. So, and kids just have a passion to learn more. They ask for these trips. The school division always kind of looks at me like, you want to do another trip about the Holocaust? Yeah. Why? Kids want to. Well, maybe you want to think about going somewhere, like this is them saying it, like maybe you want to go think about doing something else culturally or museums. I said, no. Look at what's happening in our world today. Look at how the students want to understand. If we're saying we actually care about enriching student engagement and student understanding, then we need to actually do it. And we need to listen to our students when they say, this is what we want. I have to be careful, I can't say too much. Okay, so teaching the Holocaust in an era when hate, extremism, and misinformation are again gaining ground. We see this all the time. Social media is one of the worst places. All of us know this. Part of what I try to do with my students is to get them to be critical thinkers, critical consumers, and explain what that actually means. So not just looking at something that comes at you, 10-second clip of what could be the Middle East. As we know, a lot of photographs and other images have been used from other parts of the world that aren't actually where the conflict is taking place. So getting them to ask questions, who wrote it, who posted it, why did they post it, when did they post it, what is their agenda? And a lot of kids, let's be honest, don't take the time to do that. They just look at it, they like it, they spread it, and it continues. So that's how I use my class time. We have units on media literacy. We take the time in class to look at examples of what this could be. We break it down. We say, how could this be offensive? How could somebody might take this and turn it into something hurtful? And that's where I think classrooms really need to come into play, to allow students the time to dive deep into this, into misinformation, disinformation, and how social media actually works to perpetuate this. So the Holocaust is not only a historical event, it is a warning. This is something that I always teach about. It's looking for patterns. It's looking for, like we say, the writing on the wall is there. Like, we see it happening, right? And now I was just talking with Jackie and some people at her table about the Bondi massacre. And it's like we've reached a whole nother pinnacle that, yes, anti-Semitism has been normalized. It is normalized, and we have to kind of break that down. But now violence is becoming normalized. So we're reaching a whole different level of what we think is acceptable in our society regarding the Jewish people, the Jewish community, how we talk about the state of Israel. And it's not an easy place to deal with it, especially in schools, because schools aren't supposed to be political, but they often can be. So how we teach, it determines whether a warning is heard. How can we translate the show as testimonies into actionable, practical lessons for the 21st century? And I was reading an article that Lee wrote, and this is what she said: Holocaust education has failed because it cannot keep up with the changing world. The article does end on a positive note, saying that we still need Holocaust education. It's just not it's not the end product. Like, it's not going to solve anti-Semitism. It's not going to solve conflict in the Middle East. It's kind of like we're inoculating. I think of Edith Kimmelman, and she said it very succinctly, like, we need to have students understand what it is. It remains dormant, but it becomes active when we see conflict specifically in the Middle East, and it just spreads like wildfire. So it's never going to go away, but we need students to understand, how does it show itself? How does it manifest? How does it mutate? So that they can see it in social media. We need to be teaching them the tools that they can use on their own outside of school so that they don't become, another perpetuation of hate and anti-Semitism. So across many societies, and this again, I'm sure this is all familiar to you here, we see an increased anti-Semitic incidents growing at an escalation that I've never seen. I thought that during COVID it was bad. I mean, we made a documentary, my students and I, about the rise of hate and anti-Semitism, and we thought, okay, look what we've done. We've done something great here. Then October 7th happens. I'm like, oh, that's not pointless, but it just escalated on a scale that I have never seen or experienced in my life. And it really implemented, not implemented, sorry, that's a bad word choice. It really impacted a lot of the conversations and dialogue that were going on in classrooms and in the schools and with teachers and with administrators. And it was very difficult to be an upstander, to speak out against what happened, which sounds pretty crazy because October 7th was a massacre. It was a pogrom. It was one of the worst pogroms since the Holocaust. And we are not allowed to talk about it. We can't call Hamas terrorists. What is going on here? So this is something that I made sure that I spent a lot of time with my students confronting, dismantling, deconstructing, and trying to teach them how we get radicalization and extremist ideas. How do they grow? Who do they target? Especially on social media now, because that's really where they're going. And so just to give you a personal example, my grade 12 students, the first unit we do is on terrorism, and they pick which units they want to do. I'm not telling them which ones that they want to do. And which ones do you think they pick? Terrorism, genocide, oppression. What do we see in social media today? Right? The misrepresentation of genocide, terrorism, oppression. And they want to know. And so each one of them investigated a terrorist group of their choice. We define what terrorism means, looking at scholarly experts in this field and what constitutes terrorism. And by the end of it, it's amazing to hear their analysis, and it's amazing to hear them look at social media, and let's just say Hamas, for instance, and how Hamas is portrayed by things like Al Jazeera, right? They're resistance fighters. You know, they're heroes, they're freedom fighters. And my students just kind of say, no, they're not freedom fighters, they're not resistors. And through their research and inquiry, like ethically inquiring about how they're impacting that part of the world and the people that are living there, they came to a new realization that a lot of the stuff that they're seeing is not real, it's not true. And it's giving them the time to dive deep into these topics. And that's something I feel like teachers just don't have is time. So you have to make the time. So my students know that we won't get through everything, but they pick certain topics that they want to, again, dive deep into to fully understand, so that when they come into conversation with other people, they can hold their own and they can bring the truth forward. And I find when I talk to other colleagues of mine, I can't speak for everyone, there's a lot of great teachers in our province, and many just, well, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I don't want any headaches. I don't want any trouble. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And this is the reality for a lot of them, because a lot of them don't know the history. It's very complicated. I'm still learning. But you have to make the effort to do that. And you do have to get out of your comfort zone to bring about this truth. And that is hard work. And that is something that follows you outside of the classroom. And as soon as you say, and this is just from my experience, as soon as you say something positive on behalf of Israel, you're already pigeonholed. You're already silenced. You know, I am in awe and admiration of so many of you that continue to fight the good fight no matter what's said to you or sent to you. And that's why I fight too, because I could give this up at any time. I don't have to do this. But my Jewish friends go through it every single day. They can't remove this from their life. And so that's what inspires me to continue to bring up these topics, to teach my students about them. And yeah, you put yourself on the line. You get called into the board office. Why are you posting about this? Why are you posting about that? Because I want people to know the truth. I want them to think about what they're looking at. I want them to think about what they're consuming. So the other people that are posting about, you know, genocide and you know, Israel is apartheid and colonizers, are they being spoken to because they're dehumanizing Jewish people? Well, no. Double standard. Like, I see it regularly, and I experience it as an educator, trying to get the truth to the students and to my colleagues. So we have the rise of Holocaust distortion, genocide inversion. This is something that I've talked about a little bit. For people to fully understand, like, people don't understand the term genocide anymore. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues. I respect him, I like him. He's not a history teacher by trade, he's a languages specialist. That's part of the problem too, is social studies gets farmed out to other educators that want to have a job. Doesn't mean they're like experts in their field or trained as historians. And so then I find for myself more pressures put on me to help them deal with these issues. And I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had explaining to them the genocide libel, giving them, you know, scholarly articles from the University of Indiana's I can't remember what the program's called, but it's on anti-Semitism. They've done amazing work there and have a lot of great lectures that educators and students can watch regarding these arguments, these debates. But it's kind of like falling into conflict with when we talk about Indigenous culture, Indigenous issues, Indigenous voices. Well, I'm like, the Jewish people are the Indigenous people of Israel. No, they're not. They're colonizers. Well, no, like, you're not even listening. So it's like some people, you try to work with them to get these ideas out there to help their students fully understand, but they don't want to understand. Therefore, it's already kibosh before you get it into the classroom. And then where do kids go? They turn to social media, right? That is our biggest challenge as educators. I would say high school for sure. I'm not sure what middle school's like, but it's a challenge. Like, you have to debunk everything you see, and how many things are sent to these kids every day. Like, it's overload, right? Like, they're doom scrolling and all this kind of stuff, and they become filled with ideas that can lead to hate. You know, I've heard kids say very anti-Semitic things, but they don't know what they're saying is anti-Semitic. And so it's like taking time to say, let's have a conversation, right? And teaching about the Holocaust is an avenue for me to open up with those conversations. Yeah, so one of the biggest things too is using a lot of images. I don't have a lot of that here. I'm just kind of sharing a little bit about what I do on a regular basis to help you understand how we can bring that into our lives. You know, talking with students, talking with educators, It's showing them what this looks like and showing them why this is not acceptable. So one example, when I talk about Holocaust distortion, is that, and I know Bell uses this cartoon a lot too, is you have the IDF soldier looking in a mirror, and what does he see as an SS officer looking back? And I've had so many students say, well, that's not anti-Semitic, that's true. I'm just like, how is that true? What makes this true? It's a political cartoon. How does it distort it? Well, you're comparing the IDF and Israel to Nazis. How is this not anti-Semitic? And so we have, the first thing is having those conversations, setting up a classroom environment where they feel safe to express themselves, even if you may not agree with them, but they're saying it because that's what they think. And being able to respond in a way that's ethical, compassionate. I use empathy and compassion a lot to get to these issues. It's not about us and them. We know what us and them lead to, right? This is another thing as to why it's important to study the Holocaust or the Shoah, right? We see what happens when a group of people on a large scale becomes the other, and people feel that it's acceptable to do these things, to ostracize them, to segregate them, and then finally eliminate and exterminate them. Right? It's an evolution, it's a drip-by-drip process, as Richard Overy, very famous historian, described it as. So teaching the Holocaust becomes a tool not only for understanding the past, but building moral literacy in the present. That's the phrase I like to use. Moral compass. Like, I don't feel like people have a moral compass anymore. It's broken. And we have to kind of restore that in our students. So these are just some headlines, just to kind of show you, and I could have had like 70 slides, if not more, just on headlines showing the problems we're seeing in Canada. Never mind the United States, never mind Europe, never mind anywhere else. Holocaust education faces challenges as fewer Canadians understand its impact. Survey reveals a troubling rise in Holocaust denial among young Canadians, underscoring the urgency of education as survivor numbers dwindle. Opinion: Holocaust education, key to countering anti-Semitism. Survey says more young Canadians believe the history of the Holocaust is exaggerated. Holocaust education in schools is a good start and shows why facts matter. And they could go on and on and on, right? And I've had the pleasure of working with Belle for so long. I mean, she's an inspiration to me. I mean, she spent her whole life fighting for Holocaust education. I don't even come close to her. And I just feel honored to be able to build those bridges with her, to be a part of it. Like, it's a huge undertaking, and I still don't understand how she deals with the stuff. Oh, I'm in a place of worship. The stuff she deals with. And I share, like, not names or anything, but I share some of the experiences that my Jewish friends are going through, and the kids just look at me like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. Like, even kids in middle school, high school, Jewish students that I have that don't say they're Jewish because they don't want to be singled out or targeted. And I said, I can wear my cross. No one's going to say anything about that, right? You can wear a hijab. No one's going to say anything about that. And if there's any anti-Muslim hate, we address it. We deal with it. Why can't Jewish students wear the Star of David? Why are they being assaulted just because they're wearing something that identifies with who they are? And they're just like, they're speechless. They don't know how to respond to that. And the answer is they should be able to be who they are without feeling afraid. Like, and I get really emotional. I'm gonna cry now, but I tend to get really emotional in class because I think of all my friends. I think of my friends in the Jewish community, my Holocaust survivor grandparents, like they're not by blood, but I feel like they're my grandparents. Like Frank Weinfeld, I'll just share a personal story. So I have a lot of tattoos, as you well know. I have one here with the Star of David, and it says 1943 for the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And I remember sitting across Frank at Tim Hortons, and he said, "Why did you do that?" like he felt like my dad. He was like scalding me. "Why would you get that? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean, Frank? Like, it's in honor of the people that rose up and fought back." Do you understand when someone sees that, they're going to think you're Jewish, and they're going to attack you and they're going to hate you, because that's what he experienced, and he didn't want me to have to go through that when I don't have to go through that. I love Frank. I love that man. I just talked to him the other day. And I said to him, I hear what you're saying. I feel your worries and your fears for me, but I can't get rid of this. It's here forever, and that's where I'm here forever. I will not back down from being an ally, and it's on my body. I am here for you. And Frank, like, he got really emotional because he didn't really experience that, obviously, during the war. One of the very famous quotes that I take from him from the documentary is, you know, in grade 1, when he's just a little guy, handsome little guy, you know, in grade 1, I knew I was a Jew because my classmates made me know it. And that breaks my heart. Like, and everybody's story is different, but no one should have to hide who they are or be something they're not because of what society's putting out there and what the media is putting out there. So I'm not going to go through all of this. This is just to show you just some of the percentages, some of the gaps that we're seeing. So knowledge gap among voters aged 29 to 44, so I fall into this category. 25% remain uninformed about the role of anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry in the deportation and death of over 70,000 plus residents. Like when we talk about the Holocaust, they don't know very much. A lot of people don't even understand, and usually when I teach, I say Shoah. In this case, I just had Holocaust, but I talk to my students about what's the difference between the Shoah and the Holocaust. They have no idea. Even some of the colleagues that I worked with from the Department of Ed didn't know. And so that's like step one. Like, we need to educate on what words mean. Again, here's another example of why these terms matter, right? Why do we spell anti-Semitism without the hyphen? The amount of times I've had to talk with people in our division, especially in the media department, they don't know, and they forget, and then they spell it again. I'm like, no, you got to change that. They don't understand that these words have like really detrimental meaning to how they're being used to talk about the Jewish people, community, Israel, etc. Survey across 8 countries, the United States, Canada, France, Germany, Austria, and Poland, and Hungary, 31% of all respondents were unaware that 6 million Jews were murdered. Like, this is just a simple fact, right? And we don't know exactly all the numbers. I've had colleagues in the past that have said to me, well, how do you know 6 million exactly? I'm like, are you serious? Why are we debating numbers? Like, this is your argument. It is the most documented and recorded genocide of all time, right? Yad Vashem has 5 million names that they've recovered. And you're saying, you're debating, you're arguing over the number of 6 million. I've had teachers in the past that gave their students an assignment. I want you to research and try to prove that it didn't happen. This doesn't happen anymore. This was like 10, 12 years ago. And conspiracy theories. Like, there are teachers like, no, conspiracy theories are great. It gets students thinking critically. I'm like, think of the damage you're doing. Because then you can take any event, any issue, and say, well, that's not true, that didn't happen. And then put a little bit of truth in there, and then people start to doubt. That's what we see, right? And so anytime I hear that, we don't have that happening, at least the last probably 5 to 8 years that I've been at Westwood. But I know in other schools that this has come about, using conspiracy theories as trying to develop critical thinking. I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think it jeopardizes historical truth and compassion and empathy for other people. And I think it will justify some of these kids' ideas of radicalism and extremism and saying that it's okay because it's true. Hamas was right in what they did. There's people that actually say that. There's people that believe that. And when are we going to say, no, that's not acceptable, that's not allowed, right? 41% of millennials lack this knowledge, education versus awareness. So despite mandated Holocaust education in all surveyed countries, significant gaps in understanding persist. And I've had this talk with higher ups in my division. You know, it's not a competition. It's not a competition between the Holocaust, the Shoah, or Jewish history and Islamophobia. You don't need to use these two terms in the same breath. You can deal with them separately. And I think they should be. That's just my own personal idea. And then people say, well, now you're being biased because you're not talking about that. It's like, yes, I am talking about that, just not at the same time I'm talking about the Jewish people. But this is something that I've had conversation on a regular basis with administrators and others as to why teachers need training, why we should be supporting teachers to go for training. And we talk about equity. I hate DEI. I'm not going to get into that. But if we're actually, if we actually want our teachers to be the best teachers they can be, then allow them to go for this professional development and be proud of having the best teachers to teach it. And so this is something I've had to talk with people about too. So how do we engage our students today? Because they're kind of the first and foremost for me. I teach for my students. I teach because I love it. I teach because I want them to be critical thinkers. I want them to do well and do good in this world. I had maybe one or two teachers that I looked up to that really challenged me in what I did, and that's why I'm here today. And that's what I want to try to instill in them, that you can make a difference. One person can make a difference, and you have to believe that. If we can't, then why are we here? So new generations are being asked to learn and internalize a history that feels distant from their lived experience. So it's identifying what their lived experience is and how can we connect that with what happened in the past and what's happening in the present. Right? We're all human beings. We all feel. People probably felt isolated, ostracized, or targeted at some point in their life. You can make connections that everyone can understand. Today's children and young adults, shaped by smartphones and constant digital communication, must engage with events that happened 8 decades ago. The world of the 1930s, 40s looks nothing like the world they inhabit today, although this point I would challenge because I think there's a lot of things that look like that today, specifically on social media and the use of AI and different things like that. And again, I think students just they haven't been taught how to deconstruct this media of social media, and when they pass it on, when they don't retweet, I find most of my students aren't on X. It's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's Snapchat. Those are the key ones that at least my students use. They laugh at me because I'm just on Facebook. I do use Instagram sometimes, but Facebook is pretty safe nowadays. And it's just helping them see how to use it effectively, how to use it in a way that's going to help and not hurt. And I think we need more of those types of courses and units to be taught in schools today. For many, the culture connected to that history is not their own, making the learning process even more challenging. I think this is very true. I'm getting more Arab students every year. I see a huge disconnect between the Arab kids and what their parents are telling them about certain things. It's trying to build that community with parents, with students. My first step is to connect with the student, to understand their experience, and to say, hey, you matter too. It's not just this group, you also matter. And then they kind of soften up and say, okay, let's have a conversation. I remember talking with one of my students who's from Jordan, and he's very proud Jordanian. And we talked about October 7th. And he was very much misinformed. And a lot of it was coming from adults he respected. And, saying, well, aren't Hamas the good guys? Aren't they the good guys? Shouldn't we be rooting for them? And then we sat down and had a conversation, and I'd say, well, why would you think that? Here's what they did. Do you know what happened? Do you know what events took place? Do you know the brutality and savagery that happened? And they don't. At least in this conversation, he had no idea. Because October 7th is Control-Alt-Deleted, and we look forward. Right? October 8th, the documentary does a great job of showing that. And it's bringing back that event, that suffering that people went through, that people are still going through. And then you can kind of make some room and space for having that dialogue. But it takes a lot of time, and you have to make connections with your kid, with your students. If they don't feel they can trust you, and I find a lot of these students, if you're a white dude standing at the front, they don't think you can connect with them. Right? They already feel like they're kind of at a disadvantage. So that's one of the first things I do, and that's what I was talking about when we talk about ethical, pedagogy. It's connecting with all your students, no matter where they come from, no matter what their views are. They hold those views for a reason. We need to try to understand them and then try to help them. That's my philosophy anyway. So some strategies that we can use, and there's some parts on here that I'll probably go through a bit quicker just because I think it's more common sense. But educators have a powerful role in shaping how young people understand anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, and responsibilities of citizenship. And this is why, I teach grade 9 to 12 specifically. In grade 9, we are just finishing up going over types of government and ideologies. We use Nazi Germany as a case study to look at how ideologies are developed, how they're grown, how they're implemented, and the importance of understanding the role of the citizen to try to protect democratic values. And ideologies are very complex, and I think a lot of the adult population doesn't understand some of these different ideologies. And I took a risk because I was being evaluated this year by my principal, and I had her come in during this lesson, and we had a really good discussion on like the realities of some of these ideas, like communism, fascism, and separating theory from reality. And I hope that she was proud of what these students were learning. Because in grade 9, I haven't had a lot of grade 9s to have this ability to think, okay, communism sounds great, everyone's equal, right? It's gonna become a stateless world, no one's gonna want or need anything, the state will look after you, and then once we don't need the state, it'll dissolve. Like, these are the kids saying this. And they're like, this doesn't make sense. Aren't we always gonna need the state? Aren't we always gonna need a government? I'm like, there you go. Like, just little things, having that discussion, using Socratic type practices to hear them, to allow them to express themselves and describe how they actually understand these terms. You know, genocide's another one, apartheid, right? These are terms that we can teach very easily so that when they see it coming to them on social media, they know it's bogus and they can say, you know what, this is not true. Why are you continuously sending this kind of stuff out? So the most effective strategies today blend historical accuracy, emotional intelligence, and opportunities for students to think critically about prejudice and human rights. The following slides that I'll look at, we'll look at 9 specific ones, and I'll keep them to a minimum. Just to kind of give you an overview, there's always more you can do. These are just some of the things that I do to help students kind of get engaged, get involved, and trying to avoid Holocaust fatigue. That's something that we took very seriously, because I can tell you right now what almost every grade 6 student coming from our middle school is going to come in knowing. And most of it comes from everyone's favorite film, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And they talk about it, they're excited, right? I talk about, yeah, we're gonna learn about the show, we're gonna learn about the Holocaust. Oh, are we gonna watch The Boy in the Striped Pajamas? And then I turn around and I hit my whiteboard. And they're like, what is wrong with this guy? What are you doing? I said, I hate that movie. Oh, why? It's such a good film. I said, everything about it is fictional. Well, what do you mean? And then I just start to break it down. And I said, don't you think it's important for the people that actually survived this horrendous event to be studied, to hear their voices, to hear from people that actually, you know, risk their lives to save people, instead of having this utopian idea that, you know, someone who's supposed to be the son of Rudolf Hess, the first commandant of Auschwitz, would be best friends with a Jewish boy who probably would have been killed on arrival. You know, and I've seen Auschwitz several times. It's like, this just doesn't work. And I show them like photos from when I've been there, when I've taken students. And I think a lot of those students want to come on the one next year, because they're like, well, we want to see like what it's really like. Why is it important to have, you know, historical truth when teaching about these specific topics? Because you could imagine, what would happen if a teacher showed a film about residential schools without any Indigenous perspective? If they just showed it through the eyes of a priest, right? Or the federal government, or the RCMP. I don't think that would fly, and I think that teacher would get a stern warning, if not fired. And this is the double standard I see in our education system when we talk about Jewish history, Jewish people. It's always, why them? Why them? Like, whoa, do you not understand what's going on today? Like, and it's about being open to have those conversations. So that's a big part of how I teach. And it takes time, but it's worth it in the end, because you see meaningful change come from the students. You know, I was just telling, I can't remember who I was telling, but I had 4 German students in my grade 12 class, all from different parts of Germany, all with different experiences. And many of them, I would say, were pro-Palestine. We talked about genocide, we talked about October 7th, we talked about the military war that's happening on the ground. And they were like, hey, can you send me some articles? Can you send me some books of like military historians or urban warfare experts that I can read to understand how this war is actually being fought? Whereas a lot of people look at it from an ideological or political standpoint. And so Friday was our last day together, and they came to my room. We just had a beautiful discussion. They're like, I think I finally understand a little bit about who the Jewish people are. And they're beautiful. Like, this was them saying that. And to me, that's all I need. They're thinking about people in a way that's not dehumanizing, that's not demonizing, that it's important before you make judgments to learn facts. And so that's just another kind of excerpt I wanted to share with you from this year, from some of my students. So students connect deeply when they see individuals rather than statistics. You have to humanize it. Survivor testimony, I still think, is one of the most important things. Yes, you need historical facts. Yes, you need scholarly works. But you need to study the people. You need to understand that these were human beings. So one of my students, I showed them a clip to teach about bystanders, collaborators and perpetrators and victims through a clip of The Woman in Gold, looking at Austria and looking at how Austria, writes about Holocaust memory. And from one scene is 2 minutes long, you see perpetrator, you see collaborator, you see a rescuer, you see so much. And from second to second, people were making choices. And then the students were like, can we watch the whole thing? And now I have students that are going to enter the Mina Rosner contest to write about the importance of Holocaust historiography and memory. At least that's the general idea behind what they want, and restitution for stolen art. But if you don't give them that opportunity and some say in how we're going to learn, it becomes kind of top down and you're just telling them what you're going to do. And a lot of students turn off from that. So this presentation is like through the eyes of an educator, what I see daily and what helps to really confront some of the problems we're seeing today. So ground students in clear, accurate definitions. I've talked about this already quite substantially, right? Connect historical anti-Semitism to modern forms, including online hate. What does this look like? Tony McAleer has made an amazing documentary that I use to show how someone can be a neo-Nazi but become so Israel pro-Jewish because you start to see people at the very base of humanity want to be loved, want to belong, want to feel accepted. And that's why so many people end up joining these types of groups, these extremist groups. It's like gang mentality, right? So clear language gives students the tools to recognize prejudice when they see it. And then they have to act and respond. Using primary sources thoughtfully. So I love using primary sources. I think anyone who would consider themselves somewhat of a historian would use them. It's important to show and have students analyze and evaluate the significance of things like the Wannsee Conference or, now I'm trying to think of all these different documents, but like photographs from survivors, right? Showing life before the Holocaust. What do you see? It shows diversity, it shows richness, it shows culture. Because I find students that end up coming into my classes really just understand, again, Jewish people as victims of the Holocaust. That's it. They don't know anything before and they don't know anything after. And I had one student, they didn't say this to me because they know what they would have heard, but we had an announcement, this was 2 years ago for Yom HaShoah, and it was something like, if we were to stand at attention for every Jewish person that was killed or murdered in the Shoah, it would be something like, was it 12 years or something like that? It's a long period of time, but one student responded to their teacher saying, well, what about the Germans? What about their suffering? So the teacher came to me because she knows that I specialize in this, and I said, okay, I know this kid. He's German, he has a German background, he's from a military family, so I can see why he would respond in that way. But it's humanizing. It's like, well, let's look at why this happened. How did this all start? Because he had no clue about the background to it. And that's what I find. A lot of the people that end up having these really radical and extremist ideas are very ignorant of the historical truth of these events. And that's why they're so important to teach. So primary sources make history tangible. Diaries, letters, photographs, propaganda posters, laws, and speeches. I focused a lot this year on propaganda because we see it everywhere. And we see it being used by so many broadcasting corporations that it's even more difficult, I think, for educators now, because now you're challenging, you have to bring in CBC, BBC, Al Jazeera, CNN, Fox, and depending on the issue that you're looking at, it's going to be different. They're going to obviously have different perspectives, different views. So showing students what applications are out there that they can use to see all sides of the issue, not just one side or another. And that takes time, and the teacher has to understand the events themselves. So for instance, when I was talking about the 12-day war in Iran, I was supposed to go to Israel that summer. That didn't happen. All the flights got canceled. And a lot of my friends were sending me video images of the ballistic missiles coming into Israel, and I used those in my lectures. And I said, what do you see? Well, these look like fireworks. I'm like, they're not fireworks. This is what the Israeli people are dealing with on a daily basis, and they're in these bunkers for hours and hours and hours on end. And basic things that they don't know, right? And I'm glad I had the privilege of being able to go to Israel to see what the reality is on the ground. I think every educator needs to go, because I think that would already, just by doing that, you would eliminate a lot of these misconceptions and myths that people have about it today. So you can do that through different things. So I encourage students to analyze, who created this, why did they create it, what impact does it have, and then we apply it to present day situations. How do we see this happening today on social media? Because kids want something tangible. They want something, why is this relevant today? Who cares about the past? Well, in order to stand the present and build a better future, you need to understand how we got here. Creating space for dialogue, not debate. Debate is good in certain circumstances, but not debating, again, well, how do you know 6 million died? Like, we're not debating that. That is a non-negotiable topic. We're not debating if the Holocaust happened. These are things that we shouldn't even be talking about. I shouldn't be up here talking about this because everyone should know. But now, in today's world, we have to. And by humanizing it, creating dialogue, we're able to do that. So anti-Semitism in particular, I find students have a very basic rudimentary understanding. I brought in my good friend Belle to speak to my grade 12s this year on anti-Semitism, the long history. She only had 60 minutes to talk about thousands of years of anti-Semitism, but she did a great job. And students were able to inquire, right? And I think a lot of students had never met someone who was Jewish. That's the biggest problem. So what I try to do is work with the Jewish community to build bridges between my students, non-Jewish educators, and Jewish educators, hence the nonprofit that I'm a part of, where I think most of our participants, we have some Jewish teachers and a lot of non-Jewish teachers. We're building relationships. We're getting to know each other. So then when someone says something about the Jewish people, it's like, whoa, hey, I've got Jewish friends. That's not true. Just like I would say about my Muslim friends or my German friends or whatever. This is something that we can work on, at least to make a small difference. So creating space for dialogue. So use structured discussion protocols, normalize questions while setting firm boundaries around harmful language, and model respective curiosity. I always tell my students, challenge me. You don't agree with me, you think I'm telling you something that's not true, challenge me, but have facts. I'm so sick of people saying, this is my truth, this is my truth. No, that's your opinion. That is not true. There's a difference between opinion and truth. And I get in a lot of trouble when I say this, because then people say, you're insensitive. You're not listening to them. No, I'm listening to them, but what they're saying is hateful. It's anti-Semitic in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's anti-Muslim. This is not true, but I'm supposed to respect their truth? No. We have to protect truth, right? And build that moral compass within our students. That's what our job is as educators. So media literacy, analyzing how misinformation spreads. The Nazis were the best at it. And they only had the radio, the cinema, and the newspapers. Like Joseph Goebbels, imagine him today. I mean, that's what Hamas is doing, right? I mean, and they're using a lot of the same tactics. And I bring those up in my grade 9 and grade 12 courses in particular, to see those. Like, it's not fun watching speeches by Joseph Goebbels. Nobody wants to look at that ugly guy. He should have been killed anyway because he had a club foot. Right? He was not a pure Aryan. But listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying and how he spins things. If we can't identify how people are spinning it and falsifying truth, then how are they going to know any difference? Right? You tell a lie, you make it a big one, you say it over and over again. Who said that? We know who said that. And we see it happening today. And I find my students come to me a lot saying, I don't even know what to believe anymore. They'll say that. Like they just give up. I'm not getting involved because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't know what's going on. This is a huge problem. And I find that by having time to teach about these things, have discussion, have dialogue, we're able to do that, at least on a small scale. So just, analyze how misinformation spreads. Like I said, discuss why conspiracy theories often target Jewish people. You don't see this really, like look at Iran right now. Who's talking about Iran? I've got a lot of Iranian friends that work with me. They have kids at the school. Their kids are like, why is no one talking about this? Why does no one care that approximately 20,000 Iranian people have been massacred? 20,000, that's the estimate. You look at these facts, like we're not arguing numbers, but these people are being killed because they want freedom. And then you talk about theocracy. You talk about the Islamic Republic of Iran. Well, don't talk about Islam. You're going to get fired. It's like, no, it's not the same. I have Muslim students in my class wearing the hijab, We talk about moderate Muslim practices versus Islamic extremism. There's a difference, and extremism is in every group, right? In Christianity, I'll pick on the Christians because I'm one of them. I'm not going to bomb abortion clinics. I'm not blowing them up. There's extremists everywhere, but it's trying to tell students not to pigeonhole or generalize a group of people. And yeah, we know this. We've been at the rallies, the protests, and how people really don't understand the differences. People celebrating the IRGC. Like, they don't know what that even is, right? And I love those on-campus questionnaires when they ask them, you know, certain questions about Hamas and Hezbollah, Houthis, and everyone else. And they don't know anything about them, but yet they're carrying their flag and supporting them, right? And so I always try to say to my students, you know, don't support something you don't understand. It's okay not to support it if you want to, like, know why you're doing it, because it could have grave consequences. Help students identify coded language. That's huge in social media today. Identifying anti-Semitism in social media. Andre Oberler does this in his work. You know, I remember taking part in an educational PD with him, and that's what we did. We took a quiz as to what would make something anti-Semitic or not. And there were people in our group, like educated people, that didn't understand what certain things were, like the blood libel in particular. I'm like, how do you not see this? Especially people that work in that field. You'd think that one would be obvious, right? So it's not, we have to understand it's not just students, it's not just teachers, like it's society, right? What kind of people do we want in our society? Because if you look at our education system, it's going to mirror our society and what we're seeing. All right, so connect the Holocaust to broader human rights education. So just a few things, because I know my time, I got 13 minutes according to my timer. So students often understand better when they see patterns, so stages of genocide. So looking at, there's 10 stages, sometimes there's 8, depending on which framework you're using. It's just to kind of show students how a genocide can progress into an actual genocide unfolding. And you can even use this framework. It's by Gregory Stanton of Stanford University, and one of my good friends, Dr. Adam Muller, is good friends with Gregory. And even he told me that, okay, it's not the best to use, it's not foolproof. The whole point of it is just to kind of show how things could progress to like massacring and exterminating people, right? And so you talk about symbolization, you talk about separation, you talk about polarization, classification of us and them. And you can see this in society. You can apply this formula really to a lot of different areas in order to try to categorize it as a genocide. And using the proper definition of genocide. There's a reason there's a definition. I love Raphael Lemkin. We should be using his definition, and people want to reframe it or reform it to be more broad, usually through like a sociological lens where then they can apply it to anything. And then it doesn't really have any meaning. And I've been criticized for saying that by a lot of people, but there's a reason why that definition exists and has been adopted. I won't talk about the United Nations today, that's for another time. So warning signs of discrimination, how democratic institutions can protect or fail people, the importance of civic participation. This helps them see the Holocaust not as an isolated tragedy, but as a call to vigilance. The biggest thing I tell my students is I want you to vote. I want you to know why you're voting. I want you to be a good democratic citizen. And what does that mean? What does that look like? That's all I want. Like, you're not going to remember all this stuff. You're not going to remember all the mapping we did and some of these other conversations. But do this. So when you hear hatred, when you see hatred, you can respond, you can act. Because it's the indifference, it's the bystander effect that we continuously see, right? The majority of people aren't rabid Hamas supporters. It's a fringe group that gets the loudest voice. They get the attention, right? And we need to be able to say, no, we're not going to tolerate this in a democracy. This is not acceptable, and we need to do something. It's not just about writing tests. It's about actually becoming an active citizen. That's one of the biggest things that I try to say to my students. And I'll show you a little video at the end, which is short, just showing one of my trips that I've done to sites of memory and just describing a few things that my students actually made the video. So that kind of has a bit more meaning for me, too. So build relationships with local Jewish communities. That's huge. I've been very blessed to be invited in here to meet you, to talk with you, to go for coffee with you, to go for dinner with you, to go to Shabbat with you. I'm very lucky, and I try to bring that into my classrooms. I try to bring that into the school as much as possible. I know I worked with Grey Academy a few times with my good friend Nama Samfir to have my students meet Jewish students and share experiences. Like, we need to understand we live in the same city. We have Jewish people that live here. They're amazing people, but they're scared out of their minds. So as a non-Jewish person teaching in a non-Jewish school, I need to help these non-Jewish kids understand what the reality is. And so that can be very powerful. It's a lot of work, a lot of preparation. There's a lot of obstacles, but that's another way that I'm trying to instill change within my students and within my classroom. Incorporate contemporary Jewish voices so students understand Jewish life today, not only through the lens of trauma. This reduces stereotypes and fosters empathy. Like, again, whenever I teach about Indigenous issues, I bring in an elder. I'm not Indigenous. I'm not going to teach you about their culture because I don't live it. So I bring in my Jewish friends to teach about the Jewish culture, Jewish faith, Jewish customs, because that's the right thing to do. But yet, why are people not doing that? Like, these are questions I ask myself on a regular basis. Establish a zero-tolerance classroom zero-tolerance classroom culture for hate. This is something that I do from the very beginning to the very end of each of my semesters. So students need to see that anti-Semitism is not tolerated. I mean, you have lived it, you've heard it. I'm very privileged to have conversations with superintendents, administrators, and educators. And some of the stories they've told me is just horrifying, that this is happening in Winnipeg. And one of my students who's doing her, grade 9 student who's doing her presentation on the evolutionary process of the Holocaust, focusing on the Einsatzgruppen. I normally don't let grade 9s do that because you're dealing with a lot of sensitive issues and photographs. But this kid is different. Like, they really feel like, no, I need to tell people the brutality that happened to people. Right? And how people didn't do anything. And local populations actually were very jubilant in taking part in some of these events. And there were limits and rules that we put in, not using photographs that dehumanized the Jewish people. I made sure that was very clear to her. And I talked with her mom and parent teachers, are you okay with this? Yeah, she's very passionate about it. And I tell you this story because one of the first slides she uses was the attack on this synagogue, in regards to the defacing of the windows, the swastikas being put on the Shaarey Zedek synagogue. And I asked her, I said, why did you use that? Well, Mr. Hiebert, this is what's happening right now. Anti-Semitism is happening right now. So people need to understand what this is and how does it look in the past to today. So I was very touched that she used a local example to speak out against hate against Jewish people here, not just in the past. Sorry, I segued there. Respond immediately to harmful comments or stereotypes. Explain why the language is harmful. Reinforce classroom norms around dignity and respect for all people, for everybody, not just certain groups. And consistency matters more than perfection, right? I don't expect my students to fully understand everything. We never will understand everything. I make mistakes all the time, every day. And we have to just be human. We have to understand that we all do this, and we want people to be compassionate and empathetic to us. So then we need to do it to them, right? And the last one is avoiding common pitfalls. So we need to look at graphic or traumatizing content that overwhelms students. I see this quite often. Simulations or role-playing, doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. I've read some horrendous examples in the United States in particular. This one when I was doing my master's at the University of Manitoba, and I was looking at the dangers of role-playing, specifically in teaching about the Shoah. And this teacher thought, what a great idea. And this was a grade 6 class, okay? Let's have this group of students be the Einsatzgruppen. There's one Jewish kid, I'm not kidding, and they made the Jewish kid Adolf Hitler. And they thought, we're going to reenact the Holocaust by bullets. This is out there. You can find this. This teacher was fired. Thank goodness. I mean, there should be more than just being fired. I also heard of examples in our province of students for their research project thinking it was a good idea to do a research project on the gas chambers and how many Jews they could kill by making a recreation of a gas chamber in their closet. I'm not kidding. Like, when I'm told this, I'm not surprised anymore, but the teacher allowed that to happen. Because every student that gets to do an assignment for me at a research inquiry project, we meet, we talk. That would have been kiboshed on day one. And they presented, they filmed it. Like, I don't have that evidence, but this is what they presented. So, because a teacher can't go to their home, can't go in their bedroom, obviously. So they had to kind of film what they did. Or you have students that use Minecraft to rebuild gas chambers. Like, this sounds like another world, but this is what happens to a short extent. But people need to understand why this is not acceptable, right? And that's the responsibility of the teacher. Okay, so it's teaching the Holocaust only as a story of victimization rather than also resilience, culture, and resistance, right? A thoughtful approach protects students while honoring the history, and this is being ethical. This is teaching through compassion and empathy, not dehumanizing, not demonizing, or not using the Holocaust to attack Israel. Because I've heard students say, well, the only reason Israel exists is because of the Holocaust. I'm like, oh my goodness. And we have to say, okay, like, where did you even hear that? Well, I saw it on social media. It's a post by this person, and they're smart people. But it's making the time to say, okay, well, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Why do you think that? That's the first thing I always say if I meet an anti-Semitic person. Why do you think that? Where did you hear that? Like, the first anti-Semitic person I've ever met was at a coffee shop in Westwood, ironically. And I was talking with my students about the documentary, about interviewing Holocaust survivors and telling their stories. And this guy was listening in on our conversation. He came up to me afterwards, and he's like, oh, what are you guys talking? What are you guys working on? I'm interested. And I said, okay, well, this is what we're doing. It's part of my master's project. He's like, well, how do you know what they're saying is true? Because a lot of them are liars. And he's talking about the Holocaust survivors. I had to restrain not punching this guy out. Because they're like superheroes to me. So that was like, I mean, you could imagine how offensive that is. And then he starts saying, well, this and that. Did you know they're the spawns of Satan? They're the demon incarnated. I'm like, wow. My students were right there listening. I said, here's a great lesson for you. Like, my kids were looking at me like, well, Mr. Hiebert, what is he going to do? Like, they were worried I was going to assault them. Because that's normal. Like, I'm an aggressive guy. I'm very protective of my friends. But it was a good learning curve for them to see this still exists. People still think these things. I remember, I think it was Bell that posted about that one guy that was arrested. I can't remember, I think it was in the US, about the synagogue of Satan, right? Like, this is going way, way back to like religious anti-Semitism, but yet this is still around, right? Because it mutates, it manifests differently, and we have to keep up with it as teachers. We have to keep up with how this is changing. And I always tell my colleagues, if you don't know, I can give you contacts to people that are experts in this field. I can help you. It's making that available, because if we ignore it and we don't address it, it's going to get worse. The Jewish students that I have at my school, we have a student that just came from Israel. She was born in Ukraine, moved to Israel, is now in Westwood. I have another student who is from Ashkelon who moved in 2019. So we have a small community of Jewish students, and they know you come to Mr. Hiebert if there's any issues. But before, like, I wasn't there last year, they told me, like, I don't feel safe here because I don't have no one I can go to if something happens. And there were a couple of events that took place, nothing bad, like nothing physical, but definitely anti-Semitic harassment. Because we do have other students from Palestinian families as well, and we're trying to like live within this paradigm, and trying to get them to not feel like they have no one to speak to, or not being able to feel who they are, or celebrate the high holidays and being proud of it. And so we're still working on that. We still have a lot of room to go. So just some parting remarks from me, and then I'll show you this short little video just to show you kind of what a trip looks like with me when I take students to go to these sites of memory to learn more. And then, yeah, if there's any questions, I'll answer a few because I'll have to rush home. I'm going to be late for the haircut, but that's okay. So studying the Holocaust helps us understand how hatred grows and how ordinary people can make moral choices. Learning these stories empowers students to challenge anti-Semitism and all forms of prejudice. Knowledge, empathy, and critical thinking are powerful tools for breaking cycles of hate. And by carrying forward the lessons of the past, students can help build a future grounded in dignity and justice. And so I always try to share with students, like, by bearing witness, you're carrying that torch, you're carrying that truth. And we need to become upstanders even more so today than ever. And so these are just some photos of my group in 2024. You can see the one photo, it's on my left. We're at the Treblinka death camp, hearing about the history of it and what took place there. And then through one more candle, we bear witness by saying the names of kids their age that were murdered here. And were murdered there because they were Jewish. And the feeling, I can't tell you how powerful that feeling is. Because students, oh, it's telling me to shut up now. It's very powerful to see students engage there, immerse there, and they come back different. And many of my students have gone on to be educators, history educators, or even at a higher level, but all of them speak out. And many of them were vocal after October 7th. And that's all I can do, is try to help students become like-minded and better people. The other picture there, bearing witness at Majdanek, I share Pinhas Guter's testimony. He speaks quite often at the symposiums. And so again, making that connection, making that human connection that these were real people. And this is our group here in Warsaw. 33, 34 students I took that year. I've taken 38. And they all want to go, they all want to learn more. It's not just shopping food, it's like they want to go because they want to walk the grounds, they want to learn about what happened so that they can be better, well-equipped to address these issues. And Emanuel Ringelblum is one of my heroes. I love this man, I feel like I'm connected with him in another life, and his son Yuri. We wrote so that the world would know, so that it would remember. And this is, sorry, and I get emotional. This is what I try to do every day, remembering those that didn't make it, remembering those that survived, and remembering the people that continue to be attacked based on their identity. So that's all I have to say for my PowerPoint. Can you see, is something up there now, a video? Uh-oh, did I do something wrong? Okay, is there a video up there? Is it playing? Okay, yeah, okay, no, it's good. So these are just highlights from the trip that I did in 2024. Yeah, that's okay. And one of my students put this together, and she used it to help present at an event that was held at the Rady Center. So they wanted to put together some of the highlights from the trip, and as you can see, like some of the food and culture, but it's very immersive within the history. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about what students were able to experience, what they learned about this Yadvabna, very tragic story, but we're looking at local collaboration, local perpetration. They come back different people, and this is just one small thing that I can do. And that's what I continue to do, and I'll continue to do until I can't do it anymore. So kids are learning, kids are changing, and kids are challenging the status quo. And that's, I think, an optimistic message to leave on. Things are happening, things are changing, and we just got to be optimistic and continue to believe. So, thank you. Yeah, I'll take a couple of questions, and if there are some. Oh, there's a whole aisle over here. All right, over here.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm very proud that our premier has decided to implement Holocaust education. That's super. And I've been one of those parents that reached out to you about asking for help. I'm wondering what we do as members of this community when we see that there's a lot of talk, but there's no actual implementation, and then we're actually seeing, we're not, like, I don't
Yeah, yeah.
So as a parent, as a former teacher, as a member of this community, how can I say, okay, it's great to say that we're implementing this, and again, like, Holocaust education is great, it is about the Jews, I'm sorry to say. Not the curriculum,
Yeah, yeah.
but that is, how can we make this, this is about the live Jews in your classroom. How can we make that more of a reality? Because I understand that what you envision your curriculum to be is powerful and alive. Can I take that?
Sure.
So there was a massive professional development day right here in March. What I'm hearing, and the curriculum is very clear that it includes the history of who we are, then who we are now, contributions of Jews to our country, to our province, and also the anti-Semitism that we know. But some schools have not taught this. There's some teachers like Kelly who've been doing this for years, and it wasn't mandated, fabulous job. But there are many who feel unsure because they haven't taught this before, and they say, okay, we want the professional development. Now, we wanted to do professional development in November, but unfortunately, there was a little bit of a delay in the announcement of the mandated program, so we moved it to March. The response to our office of professional development has been astounding. We will reach the maximum that that movement can have. We're already at 187 for Winnipeg, and we're also having another day in Brandon. I think that when we have that professional development, also we make it available outside of that day, anyone who wants help, I think that there'll be more comfort in the implementation. Now, this can be taught, I also, there's a misunderstanding. This isn't a separate, and I know you don't misunderstand, but for me, this is a separate course like English.
Yeah, yeah.
This is put somewhere within grade 6, 9, and 11. It doesn't even have to be social studies because grade 6 we've got Carol Davis' amazing books that fits into English, literature, etc. If we can have 2 weeks or even 3 weeks, which would be amazing, to teach what's in that curriculum, that's all we need. And I do feel it will be implemented. There's still opposition, as I'm sure everybody in this room understands, from certain communities, but even sadly within our own community. I was just having a discussion earlier that one of the biggest opponents to this curriculum is independent Jewish voices who go to speak to the minister of education and say, no, they don't do it this way. We're Jews. This is our opinion. A group that represents 6% of the Canadian Jewish population. But they're out there.
Yeah.
Fighting it. But I do feel sanguine that we will have this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, you get the last word.
Okay.
And we'll finish for today, and I'm sure Kelly will be happy to be with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll share my email with you, and people can email. That's fine. There's always more questions than we have time for all the time. And I get your question. I get it all the time. Okay, one quick question, then yeah.
You mentioned that 9-year-old student who did the video of grade
Oh, yeah, grade 9. Yeah, grade 9.
grade 9. She gets it. This synagogue was hit with a swastika, as there was other swastikas around the city. The police have yet still to make a hate criminal case about this.
It's not for the police to, I'm sorry, it's not for the police because it's ground and these things take time.
Yeah,
And just, we need to be patient.
yeah. All right, real quick.
Real quick, do you think it would be better to educate our kids not only through education, but us as adults in our own home?
Oh,
About anti-Semitism.
yeah,
So if I said that wrong, but not only telling them that you can't do this because it's going to hurt somebody and that nothing wrong.
yeah,
And actually sit down and explain to them you can't do this.
yeah,
Because a lot of the times when these young kids grow up on social
Yeah.
and they're not educated, and they'll see a post and they'll feel like, they'll feel cloudy about that, and they'll share it, and maybe their friend is, of a different race, and they'll think that they're being anti-Semitic, but the kid doesn't
Yeah.
know because they're not educated.
Yeah, it starts at home. It always starts at home. You're not born hating. You're taught to hate. And I share that with my.
You have to go home and you have to go get a
So there's a good segue. Yes, yes.